Okay, so good morning, everyone. So for today, we're going to discuss about the enterprise architecture overview. No, so the structure and behavior of enterprise IT landscape in relation to each business environment are represented by enterprise architecture. So it gives a roadmap to get a future state and it reflects how IT is currently and will be used in the company. So the enterprise architecture provides understanding of how IT is now used in corporate operations, a vision for how IT will use in business operations in the future, and a roadmap no show how the IT landscape will change over time, no, including the transitional phases between the present and the future states. Because architecture artifacts like model diagram in principle are used to document enterprise architecture, because the enterprise architecture blueprint refers to all these things together. Okay, an organization employs enterprise architecture management, a structure strategy to create, administer, and use enterprise architecture to integrate business and IT. No, so the enterprise is guided along the route from its current state to the target state by EAM, which converts the enterprise vision into venture. And since the two concepts are intertwined, in practice, we refer to both EA and EMA as a discussion for the entire semester. No, it should be highlighted that EA is not the only company working to manage the challenges presented by the enterprise IT ecosystem. Because in addition to the pure enterprise architecture, an enterprise architect also plays a role in other aspects, no, of an IT administration, particularly in strategic enterprise planning, IT investment management, IT project management, and IT infrastructure management. And to give us more details about the topic, let us all welcome our presenter. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Doc Marmela, for the introduction. So we're going to discuss about the overview of enterprise architecture. So enterprise architecture, as we go along on the overview of enterprise architecture, we're going to talk a lot about these things. First, the definition of terms, the elements of enterprise architecture, the importance of enterprise architecture, the domains of enterprise architecture, and enterprise architecture as a perspective or as a whole. So let's first define, since enterprise architecture is a two different words. So let's first define enterprise. Let's define that enterprise. So enterprise, the definition of enterprise, a project based on Merriam-Webster, a project or undertaking that is especially difficult, complicated, or risky. A unit of economic organization or activity, especially a business organization. A systematic, purposeful activity, mainly on agriculture, is the main economic enterprise among these people. Readiness to engage in daring or difficult action. Initiative shown great enterprise in dealing with crisis. So So enterprise generally is an organization or sub-activity whose boundary is defined by commonly held goals, processes, and resources. This includes whole organization in the public or in private or in a non-profit sector parts. An organization such as business unit, programs, system, or parts, multiple organizations such as any different supply chains. So let's proceed to the meaning of architecture. Architecture, the art of science of building, specifically the art of practice of designing and building structures, especially habitable ones. A formation of, or construction resulting from or as if from conscious act, the architecture of the garden be unifying, coherent from a structure, architectural product or work building that comprised architecture of the sphere. A method or style of building Gothic architecture, the manner in which a component of a computer or system are organized, integrated, different problems are there. So mainly the architecture itself, it is the art of building something which is beneficial on a specific purpose. So the architecture mainly the the great architect architecture that we encounter was the Egypt and the architecture in Egypt, which is the pyramid that comprises different angles, the complicated angles to construct. And generally, the architecture itself is defined as the it's for it's construct and creative creative building that that promotes for its purpose. So let's define the enterprise architecture as a whole. Enterprise architecture is the methodology by which an organization plans and arrange IT infrastructure. The components of enterprise architecture are analysis, design, planning, and implementation. Architectural framework principles guides the organization through business information, process, and technology strategies, all with an eye to reaching the desired business outcome. So enterprise architecture, mainly it's the analysis or documentation of an enterprise in its current and future stage from an integrated strategy, business technology perspective. So enterprise architecture, it it promotes the the process in which you create a blueprint and you're you're enhancing a specific trade or scope on that blueprint in order to is uh, systematically integrates the the desired the desired process na pwede mong baguhin dun the specific problem on sa system na ginagawa. So mainly let's talk about the importance of enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture will help multiple departments in a business to understand the broader business model, and it articulates challenges and business risks. Because of this, enterprise architecture has an important role in unifying, coordinating departmental processes across an organization. Being able to access, understand business capabilities should also help individuals identify gaps in their business. And from there, they can make more informed decisions. So, enterprise architecture, the importance of this is it will help multiple departments in a business to integrate the changes that could help the business processes. The perfect example of this is when we have our dream house and we are creating a renovation on a specific house. So we need the blueprint of the whole as a whole of the house in order to initiate the renovation na gagawin natin. Just like for example in this picture, wherein this is the house in general. So para ma-integrate mo yung renovation na gagawin mo sa isang specific part ng house, kailangan mo yung pinaka-blueprint ng bahay. Ayun, para ma-initiate mo ng maayos yung renovation na gagawin mo. Just like for example this. So let's proceed to the domains of enterprise architecture. First of all is in this diagram the business, data, application, and technology. So let's tackle first the business. 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 Describe the goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics of the organization. So, the domains of enterprise architecture, the business defines by operating models outcome, business capabilities, information concept, products and services, value stream stakeholders and different processes na nai-engage dun sa business na yan, and the rules and regulation commonly integrating in the certain business. The business domain is also critical in helping to prioritize initiative and to transform operating models, and it's maximizing value exchange. So yun yung pinaka rules ng yung pinaka meaning ng of business in domains enterprise in enterprise architecture. So let's proceed to the data. Data describe an environment where integrated, consistent, timely information is available as needed and cognitive. So data or information, it describe an environment where integrated, consistent, timely information and as available as needed. AI infrastructure, for example, is for turning that information into knowledge. The insight identifies old and new sources of data and how they integrated and aggregated data, transformation in enterprise-wide conceptual and semantic models. So let's proceed to the application. An application, also referred to as an application program or application software, is a computer software package that performs a specific function directly for an end user or in some cases for another application. An application can contain or group of programs describe the end-to-end structure of an application. In particular, the use of modern architecture such as microservices and data stream, omni-channel access, integration between application standard interfaces, and etc. It identifies an inventory of application for portfolio management. The application domain is critically in providing interoperability to support of user experience, in providing flexible services and managing cost complexity. So let's proceed to the meaning of technology in the domains. So technology, the information, the use of computer networking is the use of any computer storage, networking, and other physical devices infrastructure. Process to create, process, stored, and secure and exchange of all forms of electronic data. Describe the technology infrastructure that support the enterprise digital products. So technology is a services, application, and information support that in the full spectrum of legacy and hybrid multi-cloud platform technologies, communication, integration, and it composes IoT and more. Provides operational excellence and non-functional requirements of availability, reliability, and scalability in different areas of the business. Then let's proceed to the elements of enterprise architecture, which consists in this diagram, which consists of framework, methodology, artifacts, best practices, repository, and governance. So let's first proceed to the governance. Architecture governance. The first basic elements is governance, which identifies the planning, decision making, and oversight processes and groups that will determine how the enterprise architecture is developed and maintained as a part of an enterprise overall governance. Governance, governance aims at supporting integrated governance as integrated group of management policies and processes that form an overall governance structure. It's typically an architecture governance must be conformated with both the overall corporated governance and the established IT governance mechanism and structure. Then let's proceed to the architecture framework. The second basic element is framework, which identifies the scope of the overall architecture and the type and relationship of the various sub-architecture levels. This thread and other viewpoints, not all frameworks allow segment or integration of strategy, business, and technology. And this architecture framework, as we have seen in this figure, it tackles the overall aspect that wherein the goals initiate initiate product services, data information, system application, and network infrastructure that composes the strategy being initiated in a specific business that will help in a most uh, uh, para mas ma-integrate nila ng maayos yung business infrastructure na ginagawa nila through architecture framework. So let's proceed to the implementation methodology. Implementation methodology. The second basic element of implementation methodology is the third basic element is methodology, which are the specific step to establish and maintain an EA program via the selected approach. So the implementation methodology, commonly the phase one of EA program establishment. The step one is to establish the enterprise management program and identify a chief architect. Step two, establish an EA implementation methodology. Step three, establish an EA governance and a links to other management processes. While step four, develop an EA communication plan to gain stakeholder buy-in. So in the implementation methodology, in the phase one, in this fourth step, it generally integrate on how we communicate and implement different different manageable program that will be integrated, or the process that will be followed to integrate different changes in a specific strategic way na i-implement natin. So sa phase 2 naman, the framework and tool selection. Select an EA documentation framework. Step 5, select an EA documentation framework. Step 6, identify EA lines of business crosscuts in the order of their documentation. Step 7, identify EA components to be documented framework by. Select documentation method appropriate for the framework. Step 9, select software application tools to support automated EA documentation. Step 10, select establish an online EA repository for documentation analysis. So, sa second phase, dito na natin i-document lahat ng process na gagawin natin. Where in, specifically para ma-monitor natin kung saang phase na tayo. At ma-monitor natin kung anong mga process na yung natatapos natin. So let's proceed to the phase 3. Documentation. It evaluates existing business technology for documentation for use in EA, documentation current use of existing EA components in all framework areas, develop several future business technologies operating scenarios, identify future planning assumption for each future scenarios, document future views of plan, EA components in all framework areas, develop an EA management plan to sequence plan changes in EA. So, in this documentation, dito na natin pinopropose lahat ng different integration na ginagawa natin sa implementation technology wherein specified the to proceed to the phase 4 lahat ng process na ini-integrate natin through this phase 3 na monitor natin, na integrate natin through the use of different documented process. So let's proceed to the phase 4, use and maintain the EA. Use EA documentation for resource planning and decision making. Regularly update current and future views of EA components. Maintain an EA repository and related modeling analysis capabilities. Release annual updates to EA management plan. So, sa phase 4, dito na na-integrate yung implementation na gagawin natin through the use of the decision making na ginagawa dun sa na in-integrate ng different departments sa isang specific business. So let's proceed to the documentation artifacts. Documentation artifacts. The fourth basic element is artifacts, which identifies the types and methods of documentation to be used in each sub-architecture area, including strategic analysis, business plans, internal control, security control, and models of workflow database systems, and networks. An artifact is a deliverable. So as we can see in this diagram, it is the specified documented artifacts on the strategy goals initiative, the wherein the strategic plan, SWOT analysis, concept of operation scenario, concept of operation diagram, balance scorecard, wherein ang pinaka-major purpose ng documentation artifacts is to input all data and all the process na dadaanan natin in order to strategically plan a specific integration na gagawin dun sa na i-integrate natin sa isang project or system. So let's proceed to the architecture repository. The fifth basic element is repository, which includes the EA website, documentation databases, and the software application tools that are used for modeling, analysis, and reporting. The repository design should reflect the underlying architecture approach. Providing easy access to EA documentation is essential for use in planning and decision making. So, This architecture repository, this can be accomplished through establishment of an online EA repository to archive the documentation of EA components in various areas of the enterprise architecture framework. The EA repository is essential a website and a database that stores information and provides links to EA tools and other EA program resources. This provides an example for repository might be designed to support documentation that organize the use of EA Cube framework. So let's proceed to the associated best practices. The six basic element is associated best practices, which are proven ways to implement parts of the overall architecture or sub-architectures in context of meta EA. So in this diagram, system level planning is not sufficient for the management and planning of technology and other resources of enterprises, which significantly sizes complexity. Uh, So sa strategic level, balance scorecard, SWOT analysis, Six Sigma, and on the business level, the alternative analysis, business cases, SOA, technology level, the cloud, object-oriented design and analysis. So in summary, EA was both uh, a management and a documented method, which enterprises business and technology planning resources management in a decision making. The purpose of EA management program was presented strategic alignment, standardized policy, decision support, and resource development. The six basic elements of EA documentation method were presented: the EA document framework, EA components, current EA views, future EA views, and an EA management transition plan, and multi-level threads that include security standard and workforce planning. An example of how we communicate various areas of the EA framework was also provided. So enterprise architecture, it comprises different, we can define it as a management program and an analysis and design method. Enterprise architecture as a management program. It consists of namely the strategic alignment that connects goals, activities, and resources, the standardized policy from the resource governance and implementation, decision support, financial control and configuration management, resource oversight, life cycle approach to development management. So enterprise architecture as a management, it provides integrated approach to capability and resources planning and decision making. EA program is a part of an overall governance process that determines resources, alignment, develops standardized policy, enhances decision support, guides development activities. EA can help to identify gaps in performance of line of business activities and programs and the capabilities of supporting IT services, system, and network. So in the analysis and design method, we will tackle about the holistic approach, the framework analysis design method, and the artifact set current views of as is strategies, process, and resources, future views, views of the strategies, processes, and resources, and management plan, a plan to move from current to future architecture. So first, let's proceed to the a management program, which consists the strategic alignment. Strategic alignment. It's a strategic alignment and other operational resource planning processes by providing macro and micro views of how resources are to be leveraged in accomplishing goals of enterprise. This helps to maximize and efficiently and effectively these resources, which it will turn it will help to promote the enterprise competitive capabilities to develop projects within the enterprise to be reviewed, determine if the support to one or more enterprise strategic goals, if a resource in or a project is not aligned, then its value, the enterprise will remain to integrate. So in this diagram, this enterprise strategic goals that consist line of business goals. I, technically it maximize the effectiveness of different aspect na pinopromote sa isang businesses to align to the strategically and to implement in a competitive way the goals and the development and i-integrate dun sa isang business. So let's proceed to the standardized policy. EA supports the implementation of standardized management policy pertinent to the development and the utilization of IT and other resources by providing a holistic hierarchical view of current and future resources. EA supports the establishment of policy for identifying strategic and operational requirements, determining the strategic alignment upon activities and resources, developing enterprise-wide business and technology resources, prioritizing the funding of programs and the project, overseeing the management of programs and project, identifying performance metrics for programs. Any projects identifying and enforcing standard configuration management. So sa policy documents, it includes eh, all categorized as general guidance, uh, specific program guidance, which uses manual plans and manuals, detailed process guidance, in which it is the standard operating procedure, and the hierarchical categories of document, and a meaningful policy established. In this way, that wala siya in-integrate, that no single policy document is too long. Therefore, too burdensome, it is important to understand various areas of policy interrelated to a program implemented across the enterprise coordinated. So then the enterprise architecture also provide a support for IT resource decision making or decision support as the executive management. The staff levels of the enterprise and the executive levels, EA provide visibility for large IT initiative that support the determination of the strategic alignment at the management level. EA support design and configuration management decision as well as the alignment of IT initiative with technical standards for voice, data, video, and security at the staff level. EA support decision regarding operations, maintenance, and the development of IT resources and services. So let's proceed to the resource oversight. EA support is standardized approach for overseeing the development of capabilities and optimizing supporting resources, depending on the scope of the resources involved and the availability time frame for the development of various system development. Life cycle method can be used to reduce the risk that cost, schedule, or performance parameters by not to be further met. A further support standard proven approaches to project management that promote the comprehensive and effective oversight of ongoing project or programs. The new development projects, finally, EA support the use of a standardized process for selecting and evaluating investment in IT resources from business and financial perspective. So, on the other hand, the enterprise architecture can also be described as an analysis, design, and method, which consists of framework, architecture components, current architecture, future architecture, and architecture transition roadmap and architecture trends. So EA enterprise architecture as an analysis, design, and method are accomplished through the following six basic elements. First is EA documentation framework, EA implementation methodology that support creation of current and future views of the architecture, as well as development of an EA management plan to manage the enterprise transition from current to future architectures. There are several common to all levels of the framework that's the EA methods. So let's proceed to the framework. So firstly, the enterprise architecture framework that enables you to design, evaluate, and build the right architecture for the organization is a high level and and holistic enterprise architecture approach, which is typically modeled for levels business, application, and data technology. Let's proceed to the architecture components. EA components are active elements of the enterprise business and technology. Operating environments and EA components include IT-related strategic goals and initiatives, supply chains, information system, software application, knowledge warehouses, databases, website and voice, data video network, and the security solution. These EA components should function together to create a robust and seamless IT operating environment that effectively support the enterprise business needs. Availability, reliability, and security, and also scalability that cost effectively are key performance measurement areas for general IT operating environment. These areas apply to each EA components along with the measure of integration and reuse of EA artifacts in which the types of document that describe component including reports, diagram charts, spreadsheet, video files, and other types of recorded information. High level EA artifacts are often text documented or diagram that describe overall strategies, program, and desired outcome. So in this, proceed to the current architecture. The the, the current view of the EA is intended to show the IT resources that are presented actively in the enterprise IT operating environment. This is also known as the view of the EA depending of the amount of prior EA. So planning these IT resources may not be aligned in the enterprise strategic goals and business service. So if little EA planning has occurred, then a significant amount of duplication in a function may be present. S- So as we have seen in this figure from document, EA provides an enterprise documentation existing strategic goals, information flows, IT systems, services, technology, the wherein the goals, product services, data information, system application, and network will be transported to the future architecture wherein ina-update nila, ini-improve nila, ini-enhance, ini-integrate, ina-optimize. So, bago ka mag-transfer from future architecture, dapat ma-integrate mo muna lahat ng process na dinaanan natin kanina. Wherein para madali nating at saka systematic nating mababago, ma-update lahat ng data and information from the previous architecture. So in some cases sa business side, the analysis and requirements of value of making particular investment in a context of EA. Developing a business case for investment in IT helps to ensure the maximize value in generating new development project, as well as ongoing operations, maintenance activities. In addition, the routine development review of business cases for IT investment. It helps to promote strategic alignment and architectural alignment, such as that components products of EA that are integrated. So let's proceed to the architecture threads. EA increasingly being used by corporation governments, non-profit profit groups, and academic institutions in many nations. While there are similar benefits to gain from EA from these large complex enterprises, the drivers are quite different in a private sector. Profit drive most planning decision making in EA is optional activity in which public sector service is delivery or primary driver money is used or lose resource, and EA may be an activity mandated by the law. However, outweighing these differences is the basic similarity that public and private sector enterprises are social entities based on the patterns of human interaction, which therefore must deal with issues of purpose, legitimacy, culture, goal, achievements, and the sharing of information. So, in summary, the chapter provided the of EA, artifacts, document, future views, EA components, and at all levels of EA, Cube framework. The use of future scenarios is one way to identify possible future operating environments and planning assumption which the future EA views can then be based on the documentation techniques that we use in developing both current and future views of EA components so that changes are easier and highlighted and compared through description and purpose composition of an EA management plan, which provides a description on an ongoing transition between current and future views of enterprise architecture. So the I think that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir. Again, an enterprise architecture, no? So an enterprise architecture is a conceptual framework that specify how enterprise should be structured and run. No? So the purpose of enterprise architecture is to establish how a company may efficiently meet its present and future objectives. So enterprise architecture involves the discipline of assessing, planning, designing, and eventual applying of analysis on an enterprise. Now, EA focuses on bringing together old systems and processes in an effort to create a seamless environment which is helpful to firms going through digital transformation. No? Way back 1980s, no, a business technologies advanced and the need to adapt to rapid technological change became crucial, no, to company strategy. So the usage of enterprise architecture frameworks, no, increased, no. Then this method was extended to include not just information technology but the entire business, no. And in this manner, the alignment of the rest of the company with the digital transformation will be ensured. And since enterprise architectural concept vary, each organization's version won't be exactly the same. No, different parts of an organization may also interpret, no, EA differently. For instance, enterprise architecture plans now are viewed in terms of the infrastructure, applications, and management components that are under the authority of programmers and other technical IT specialists. No, enterprise architects, no, are still in charge of carrying out business structured analysis. Nevertheless, no. Again, we need to understand that enterprise architecture will assist various departments in a business in comprehending the larger business model and articulating difficulties and potential hazards. No? As a result, no, enterprise architecture is crucial in integrating and harmonizing departmental activities within a business. So individuals should be able to discover gaps in their businesses by being able to access and comprehend business capabilities, no, which will then allow them to make better educated decisions. Okay, the creation of a map or blueprint of an organization operations may be one of the key objectives of enterprise architecture, because, no, the design must to have details like a diagram of the IT resources and the business procedures. No, promoting uniformity and the team alignment are two different shared objectives. Now, in order to do this, environment across teams and organization might be unified, and the business requirements of an organizations are typically the basis, no, for guidance. No, enterprise architecture is, of course, has a four point views, no, business viewpoint, application perspective, information perspective, and technology perspective. No, so the methods and the guidelines that the business uses on a daily basis are defined by the business perspective. The interconnection between the organization procedures and standards are defined by the application perspective. The organization needs raw data such as document, files, databases, photos, presentations, in spreadsheets, no, in order to function effectively. In the information perspective, define and categorize this data. The hardware, operating system, programming languages, and networking technologies that the business uses are all defined by technical perspective. And the expert in diverse fields that utilize various enterprise architecture frameworks, the phrase may have varied connotation. For instance, enterprise architecture plans are viewed by programmers and other technical IT workers in terms of the infrastructure, application, and management components that they are in control of. Okay? So I think that's it for this topic. Okay? There are certain advantages and disadvantages of different EA actually EA frameworks. No? Maybe somebody was assigned to discuss the TUGAP, no? And different enterprise architecture framework. Maybe I think I will schedule this topic in the last part of our discussion. So for the meantime, I think that's it for this introduction to enterprise architecture.